A man is in his boat out on the lake with a bucket full of fish that he had just caught. A wildlife officer spots him and pulls his boat up alongside. Seeing the bucket of fish in the man's boat, the wildlife officer asks to see his fishing license. The man tells the officer that he doesn't need a fishing license. The wildlife officer looks down at the bucket and says, "You definitely need a license to be catching fish. I can see that you've been fishing today. You have live fish right there." The man says, "Oh no, those are my pet fish. I just brought them out here for the day to enjoy the lake." "Pet fish?" replied the wildlife officer. "Oh, absolutely. I let him out of the bucket and they swim around and play, but when I whistle they all jump right back in. They are very well trained." The wildlife officer scratches his chin, then says, "I've never heard such a... Well, I've got to see this." The man dumps the bucket of fish into the lake, then calmly turns and looks at the wildlife officer. The wildlife officer says, "Well, call them back." The man says, "Call who back?" The wildlife officer says, "Your pet fish." "What fish?" replied the man.
3 choices. A man dies and finds himself in a plain-looking hallway. After a couple seconds, Satan appears in a puff of smoke. "Hey there. Welcome to hell." It's not like the stereotypes or the movies though. There's no fire or anything like that. Basically, the way it works, I'll show you 3 rooms. After that, you pick one and that's it for all of eternity. Satan snaps his fingers, and they find themselves standing on concrete. There is concrete paving in every direction as far as the eye can see. Also, there are people everywhere, and everyone is standing on their head as far as the eye can see. The guy thinks to himself, as far as eternal punishment, this isn't so bad. I'm sure the pain of the concrete will eventually go numb and I'll get used to the blood rushing to my head. I think I'll take this one. Satan snaps his fingers again, and they find themselves standing on grass. There is well-manicured soft grass as far as the eye can see, and like the last room, there are people everywhere standing on their heads. The guy thinks to himself, this is even better. The soft grass will soften the pain compared to the concrete. I'll take this one instead of the last one. Satan snaps his fingers a 3rd time, and they find themselves knee-deep in manure. There is knee-deep manure as far as the eye can see. People are sitting on bar stools drinking coffee, chatting. The guy thinks to himself, wow, this is great. I'm sure I'll get used to the smell of manure, but other than that, this is definitely not the eternal torment I expected in hell. He turns to Satan and says, I want to stay here in this 3rd room. Satan replies, are you sure? Once you're locked in, that's it for all eternity. You cannot change your decision. The guy says absolutely, and Satan disappears with a puff of smoke. After a few minutes, Satan's voice comes over a loudspeaker and he says, all right everyone. Coffee break is over. Back on your heads.
So old Jed is screwing his goat when a neighbor witnesses this unspeakable act. The neighbor calls the cops, and Jed is arrested. Jed goes to a lawyer, explains the case, and the lawyer says, I can defend you for $5,000. What's the point, says Jed. My neighbor witnessed the whole thing. Why should I waste $5,000? They're gonna find me guilty for sure. Don't you worry, says the lawyer. The key to any trial is the jury, and believe me, I know how to pick a jury. So Jed reluctantly agrees. The day of the trial, the neighbor gets up on the witness stand. The prosecutor says, tell the jury what you saw. So the neighbor says, I was walking along my property when I seen old Jed over there approach one of his goats, drop his drawers, and mount that poor animal from behind. After about 2 minutes, old Jed appeared to be finished. What happened then, asks the prosecutor. Well, says the neighbor, then that goat turned around and licked Jed's pecker. A gasp went up in the courtroom, and old Jed had all but given up hope when a juror in overalls leans over toward the fellow next to him and whispers, you know, a good goat will do that. A woman is at her boyfriend's parents' house for dinner. This is her first time meeting the family, and she is very nervous. They all sit down and begin eating a fine meal. The woman is beginning to feel a little discomfort, thanks to her nervousness in the broccoli casserole. The gas pains are making her eyes water. Left with no other choice, she decides to relieve herself a bit and lets out a dainty fart. It wasn't loud, but everyone at the table heard the poof. Before she even had a chance to be embarrassed, her boyfriend's father looked over at the cat that had been snoozing at the woman's feet and said in a rather stern voice, Bubbles. The woman thought, this is great, and a big smile came across her face. A couple of minutes later, she was beginning to feel the pain again. This time, she didn't even hesitate. She let a much louder and longer fart rip. The father again looked in the cat and yelled, "Damn it, Bubbles." Once again the woman smiled and thought yes. A few minutes later the woman had to let another one rip. This time she didn't even think about it. She let rip a fart that rivaled a train whistle blowing. Once again, the father looked at the cat with disgust and yelled, "Damn it, Bubbles, get away from her before she shits on you." A man walks into a bar and notices a jar filled with $10 bills. He asks the bartender what it's for, and the bartender explains, "We have a challenge here. If you can complete 3 tasks, you get all the money in a jar." Intrigued, the man asks what the tasks are. The bartender says, "First, you have to drink an entire gallon of hot sauce without crying. Second, there's a pit bull out back with a bad tooth, and you have to pull it out. Finally, our 90-year-old landlady upstairs hasn't had a good time in years. You need to give her an unforgettable night." The man considers the tasks and then asks about the prize money in the jar. The bartender replies, "Well, there's about $3,000 in there right now." The man thinks it over and says, "No way. I'm not going to do all that for $3,000. A few drinks later, the man asks the bartender, "Where's that jar again?" He looks at it and thinks about the money, then orders a gallon of hot sauce. He downs it without shedding a tear, his face turning bright red in the process. With determination, he stumbles to his feet and heads out to the back. The bar patrons hear growling, snarling, and yelping, followed by a long, painful scream. The man stumbles back into the bar, his clothes torn and covered in dirt and blood. He gasps for breath and asks, "So, where's that old lady with the bad tooth?" A battalion is under heavy enemy fire. The commander gathers his soldiers and explains, "Listen men, we can't hold for long. We must retreat and come back with reinforcements. However, someone must stay behind and cover our backs. And whoever he is, our supply situation is bad. All we can give him is 3 grenades and a helmet, and that's it. So, anyone?" Everyone is silent. Suddenly, one guy steps forward, "Commander, I volunteer. My only request is, instead of 3 grenades and a helmet, give me 3 helmets and 1 grenade." A strange request, but the commander obliges. They retreat, the enemy doesn't pursue, but, strangely, there are no shots, no explosions, no screams. A few hours pass, they come back with reinforcements. Everything is quiet, no sign of battle. They come to their former position. Enemy soldiers stand around. Some without weapons. Some without uniforms. Some naked. In their midst sits the guy who volunteered, surrounded by money, arms, clothes. In front of him, the 3 helmets are on the ground. The guy says, "All right fellas, come in, come in. Who else wants to guess where the grenade is?"
A man boarded an airplane and took his seat. As he settled in, he glanced up and saw the most beautiful woman boarding the plane. He soon realized she was heading straight towards his seat. As fate would have it, she took the seat right beside his. Eager to strike up a conversation, he blurted out, "Business trip or pleasure?" She turned, smiled, and said, "Business. I'm going to the annual Nymphomaniacs of America convention in Boston." He swallowed hard. Here was the most gorgeous woman he had ever seen sitting next to him, and she was going to a meeting of nymphomaniacs. Struggling to maintain his composure, he calmly asked, "What's your business at this convention?" "Lecturer," she responded. "I use information that I have learned from my personal experiences to debunk some of the popular myths about sexuality." "Really?" he said. "And what kind of myths are there?" "Well," she explained. "One popular myth is that African American men are the most well-endowed of all men, when in fact it is the Native American Indian who is most likely to possess that trait. Another popular myth is that Frenchmen are the best lovers, when actually it is men of Mexican descent who are the best. I have also discovered that the lover with absolutely the best stamina is the Southern redneck." Suddenly the woman became a little uncomfortable and blushed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I shouldn't really be discussing all of this with you. I don't even know your name." "Tonto," the man said. "Tonto Gonzalez, but my friends call me Bubba."
So, I feel like YouTube is slowly dying. Over the past few years, I felt like YouTube became worse and worse, and is going to end up straight killing itself if nothing is done. This started with the dislike count removal, apparently because they saw the dislike count harming parts of their ecosystem through dislike attacks as people actively work to drive up the number of dislikes on a creator's videos. Dislikes were a key feature to tell if a video was worth watching or not. This also helped people to tell if videos were scams or not. Speaking of which, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that saw these MrBeast ads, telling you to visit their page to claim $1,000 or other scam questionable ads that wants your credit card or something. There's also these bots that flood the entire comment sections, literally making a robot apocalypse. And seriously, I know some content creators delete as much of these comments as they can, but I don't think they don't have any occupations besides that. Most YouTubers are very busy to keep their channel up, so I don't think they've got time for this robot apocalypse crap. And you know what's the worst part about these? No matter how much we report them, do everything to keep them away, they just won't stop coming back, and I think this is partly the platform's fault. Do not tell me that some multi-billionaire company cannot set up a program to get rid of the bots and scammers. I'm not dev, but, come on guys, what does it take? This is without mentioning all the random terminations done to some channels due to false copyright claims, because YouTube doesn't seem to care about this problem too, and also the features that were removed such as sort by oldest and community subtitles. I just can't take them anymore. Nothing is done to prevent them, and that's killing the platform like a tumor. So, that was my feedback on YouTube now. Feels like they don't even care about what their community anymore. Maybe this will change, in a far future. At least I hope so. Maybe people will disagree with me or tell me some good things that YouTube did, things that I'm too blind to see.